Thank you, Amy. Our presenter today is Mike Marotta and Naomi Leibowitz from Disability Rights, New Jersey, who will present on the topic Assistive Technology in the IEP Process Student Involvement. And I will pass it on to you guys.
Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate it. Thanks, Amy. Good to see you guys. Hello, everybody. Second to share my screen, and then we'll get rolling. Shout out to Amy and Lisa for the courtesies, the conference courtesies. Love it. I was like, oh, those are great. What a great idea. We are very excited to be here with all of you today, myself and Naomi, to talk about a subject near and dear to our heart, which is talking about assistive technology and how that can be a tool to support students in their education. We'll give you a little bit of a sense of who we are first, and then we'll dive into our conversation today. Again, there we are. You are effectively looking at the entire ATAC organization, as Naomi and myself are the two members of our team now. We had been recently all the way up to 4 people, including a summer intern, but the summer's over, so the intern goes back to what they were doing, and so we're back down to 2 people. So if you want to reach out to us, feel free. There's our email addresses. You can always reach out for that. I think the courtesies piece that was mentioned in the beginning is really kind of critical as we go through this part of our conversation, in that we can give you general ideas about assistive technology and what might help people and those kinds of things. But in a forum like this, we just won't be able to give any personalized information. It'll all have to be kind of broad, but that doesn't mean you can't email us. Feel free. We would love to chat with you if you want to shoot us an email to start the conversation, and then we can follow up as we go. So again, those courtesies were a good little starting point here. We have the slides. I bet if I just chat for another second, Naomi will drop them in the chat, because she usually does, and it's amazing. They just show up. There they are. There is a link to our slides. Everything we talk about today is in those slides. So please feel free to check that out, have that on your own computer, save that to wherever you save things that you want to review later. I think it's good. There's also some links in the slides that will take you to resources on our website or resources out in the community. And so I think those will be really important to have as well. So you can either do the link that Naomi dropped in the chat box, or you could scan the QR code with your mobile device. And either of those will get you to the slides. Quietly to 3 in my head, and then I'll go on. As we mentioned in the beginning, you are, of course, welcome and invited to participate. If you have anything you would like to add, a question, a thought, a comment, a resource, any of those things, please feel free. Drop it in the chat. We're looking at the chat. Naomi and myself are looking at the chat as we're talking, and we would love to hear from you. It's always nice to know that there's other people out there that this is connecting with or causing you to take a minute to reflect and ask a question. So please feel free. And like everything else I've said, if we run out of time, chances are high we will. We typically do. We'll follow up with you after. So please make sure that you follow up with us through email, or we'll connect with you. All right, who are we? I'll give you the 5-minute rapid fire explanation of who we are. Like Lisa said, we are from Disability Rights, New Jersey. We are the Richard West Assistive Technology Advocacy Center. So what does that mean? Well, we are federally funded through the Assistive Technology Act, and we receive funds from the federal government to make sure people across New Jersey know what assistive technology is, what might work for them, and how to get it. A lot of information referral, a lot of sharing of resources. We do a handful of core services that we provide to anyone in New Jersey. People with disabilities, their family members, stakeholders that are supporting them, whoever it might be. We can do demonstrations of technology. So if you recognize that there is a need, so if you're a person with a disability and you're struggling to complete some task, you can reach out to us. We can demonstrate technology to you to help you make a decision on what might be beneficial for you. Sometimes people confuse that with an evaluation. We do not do evaluations. We do demonstrations. We show you enough ask your opinion on what you think makes sense to go forward. We may offer some suggestions, but in no way are we evaluating your need. But in essence, what we're doing is showing you what's out there and what's available and what's possible with technology. We also host a loan program where anyone in New Jersey, whether you're living or working in New Jersey, person with a disability, professional, family member, whoever it might be, you can borrow assistive technology devices for 3 weeks at a time for free. That is a free service that we provide across the state. You can reach out to the Lending Center, which is housed at Advancing Opportunities. They will mail something to you, and they will give you a piece of information that I lost the word there, label. Thank you, the label, to mail it back. So it costs you nothing. And Naomi dropped that in the chat as well. As you can see, the chat will be pretty hopping with resources as we go. So make sure that you're checking in there as well. And then finally, we partner with Goodwill Home Medical out in the community to recycle and refurbish durable medical equipment. They are located down in Camden County. You can check out their website, goodwillhomemedical.org, and you can get things for very, very discounted rates. I always point out, like, some of the, I always amazed at these discounted rates of like a bath bench for like $10. Don't quote me on any of this, by the way, but that's what it was last time I was there. Bath benches, wheelchairs, hospital beds, anything you can think of. People from the community who no longer need it, bring it to Goodwill. Goodwill fixes things, repairs, replaces things, sterilizes, cleans, puts them back out in the community. So definitely check that out as you go. A couple more things I promise we'll start. We have a YouTube channel. We do a lot of presentations and a lot of sharing of information virtually, similar to what we're doing today. And everything we do, we put up on our YouTube channel. So if you do a search on YouTube for ATAC NJ, there's a link at the top of this page that will bring you there as well. In the chat, you can get to all our videos, and so you can check out anything we've presented. If you want to know more about assistive tech, here's some upcoming live webinars we have coming up in the next month or so. So we do these tech spotlight webinars where we are asking manufacturers to share about their tools so that people have a better understanding of the tools that are available out in the community that might be beneficial to you. So check those out. If you can't make them in person, don't worry. They get recorded and they get put up on our YouTube channel also. So everything ends up there. And I think finally, this might be one more slide, and I think this is it. We also host a couple virtual opportunities to connect and build your community and brainstorm with others. We host the Assistive Technology Town Hall, which actually started at the beginning of COVID, and we've just continued doing it, where we have people from across the country come together through Zoom and just talk about assistive technology, what might help people in education with the support of assistive technologies. That happens every Monday at noon. That might change. We might be moving to a bi-weekly meeting. So at this point, it's still every Monday. We're not sure if it's going to stay every Monday. So keep an eye on our website for that. And if you're interested in making things, creating new and unique tools to meet a person's specific needs, we host on the third Wednesday of every month what we call the Maker Roundtable. People from across the country get together and brainstorm solutions for items. So if I need assistive technology and it doesn't exist, I get together with all these engineering types and we all talk about things, and then we create ideas that someone can use to meet their needs. So check that out. Everything lives on our website, at4nj.org. at4nj.org is our website. All right, let's shift gears. And we're just going to, Naomi and I are just going to put this right out here in the beginning here. This is not a talk about assistive tech tools. Now I'm waiting to make sure nobody drops off the participant list. Good. This is really about how you make sure the team is working well to ensure that the right tools are put in place for someone. We're not going to talk about the tools today, but instead we're going to talk about the process that gets them. When we think about assistive technology, we have this idea of, through IDEA, AT device, AT service. We're talking about the service piece today. And so that is your one warning that we won't talk about tools, but something tells me we probably may say something at some point about tools, because I don't know that we can stop ourselves. And this is exciting. Let me tell you a little peek behind our ATAC window, curtain here. Naomi often says to me, I'll talk about these different slides, and then I always forget and I just power through them and never stop talking. But today, Naomi put her picture on the slides, so I remember to stop talking and she will start talking. So Naomi, tell us more.
Okay, this slide, I just want to stress, it's a girl who is just using the instructions to make a model airplane, whereas the guy is just doing visually. And it's real, and they may have the same exact learning difference, but as you see, they learn differently. Not everyone with the same differences learn the same. So you can't say that there is a perfect tool, because people often say to me, just give me a tool, just give me that perfect piece of information that will work for everyone. I can't, because there is no perfect tool for everyone. Everyone learns differently. People have different needs. And often you hear, well, that tool is a piece of crap, to put it mildly. But it's not the tool. It's just not the tool for that person. So you need to think this is not a cookie cutter approach, not one size fits all. And Mike, do you want to add anything? No?
You said it all. No, I think
Okay.
I think it's really important to leave with on that slide is there's not one tool for everyone. It's exactly the things Naomi says. We get a lot of conversations from people where they say, don't show me that. Those things stink. That tool stinks. That tool is bad. And really what that person is saying to us is not that the tool is bad. The tool is not matched to your need is what that is. And we get that because people try to use tools that are not appropriate for them. And so thinking about how you go about deciding on the right tool becomes critical. So there.
Yeah.
I said I didn't want to say anything, and then I said a bunch. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's a point to really drive home. And this is just a 30-second video, and we're going to watch it. And then we are going to see your reactions to it.
Maybe we're not. Wait a second, Naomi. I could have not shared properly. Hold on, everyone. Technology snafu. Hold on. Oh, I did.
Hey.
Huh. All right, wait a second.
It's a Monday.
It is, right?
And it's technology.
So maybe we'll go back through the video and describe it before it starts.
Okay.
So you have a woman and her older father in the kitchen preparing food. That's the starting point there. And she asks him if he's enjoying the new iPad that she gave him for his birthday, and he says it's good. And then he brings the iPad over and he's used it to cut up all the food. So he's using it as a cutting board. And just in case you're not following, then he rinses it off in the sink and puts it in the dishwasher because it's a cutting board. And there you go. Naomi, go ahead. What do you think about that?
Okay, first, before I even make any comments, please feel free to turn on your mics and make a comment about this. Or feel free to share in the chat. I want to hear from you guys before I go and say anything. So please. Feel free. Anyone?
Does this and again, this might be a little to the extreme, but does this resonate with people?
Yes.
This idea of technology being used inappropriately or not even really necessary. I mean, I think that becomes part of the real trick with this. Amy, you're gonna join us?
Yes,
Oh, your
and
mic
I
on.
would say yes. I thought it was funny. I was laughing over you, but yeah, I mean, I definitely especially when some people think it's, you know, it's intimidating. And so they shy away from it, or they use it for things that maybe aren't the best use of it, or sometimes don't have access at all when it could be really beneficial.
I think that's a really good point. I would give this older man props because he was at least willing to try the iPad. Granted, not in the right way in the least, but at least he has it. And you know, I'm always a glass half full kind of person. At least it was there at his fingertips, and it was kind of ready to go for the task he thought he was going to use it for. You know, kind of interesting to say the least as he goes forward.
Definitely. And that gets us to the next point, assistive technology. And I'm sure everyone knows the definition of assistive technology. It's any piece of equipment or product or system that you could use to help you improve or increase your functional capabilities. It could be as simple as a pair of glasses that will help you see. It can be anything, low tech, high tech, anything that helps you do a task that you can not otherwise do. But there's two parts. There's the device part, which everyone is like, just give me a tool. But there's also the service part, where and that part often gets overlooked. Like in the video we saw, he was given an iPad, wonderful. He used it, but he used it for the wrong purposes. Could be no one explained to him what it was used for. And often that's the case. We just give out tools and we don't explain why they need. And they either don't get used or they get used improperly, or they just sit and gather dust because there's no training, there's no real selection. The selection process is great. Why give a person like a tool that has all the whistles and bells and all they need is something to read to them? You have to decide what features are important to the individual by discussion. And then how do you pay for it? Mike, you want to add anything?
Done a nice job. This time I'm not going to add anything.
You can.
I'm going to just click the button. No, excellent. Awesome.
And a lot of times people go, oh, I am just going to wait for the expert to come in and tell me what to do. Why are we waiting when we already have so much technology at our fingertips? And we have so many people on our team already. That might have the answer, but you're waiting. And by waiting, you're holding up that child from being productive. Try it, because a lot of times it is trial and error to find what is working for a person. IET specialists may not always be necessary and may not be available for when the person needs it. The time is now. Try it. You might find that you already have it and you know how to use it, and someone on your team may be the expert already. Why wait?
And statements have power when two assistive technology specialists are telling you you don't need us to move forward.
You
You
don't.
can move forward without us.
We wanna
Naomi's
do-
right.
Yeah, we want to do ourselves out of a job and give you the power to move forward.
I think it's interesting. I think a lot of times these are, when I think about statements I hear from special ed directors and from team members in schools, when we talk to them, and I can think to a special ed director just talked to fairly recently who was frustrated because the AT evals reports that she was receiving back were very similar. And she felt like that was a representation of the AT specialist not being good at their job. And in the conversation we had, I tried to flip that a little and said, what it sounds like is that you're making a lot of referrals for students with very similar needs. And perhaps a better way to do that would be to build some capacity within your school to do some trials with students, to do some exploring with tools before you reach out to an AT specialist. I always like to say, and Naomi and I, we're pretty comfortable realizing we'll never work ourselves out of a job, but we're going to keep trying. And I think what's interesting about that is if your team, and we can talk about who's on your team, and we'll talk about it in a couple minutes. So hold that thought for a second. Your team, if they have that expertise to show a student how to use a tool that reads out loud for them, and then you can resolve a need instantly to try it, you might not need the AT specialist until that doesn't work. So you've done kind of, I like calling it kind of triage support. It's triage. You're like, oh, here's a need. I have an idea. Let's try it. Did it work? Yes or no? If it did, great. Move on. Congrats. You've done it. That's awesome. But if it didn't, then you start looking at, all right, who do I need as part of this?
Mm-hmm.
Because like Naomi said, you could reach out to an AT specialist. And again, we've both been in that position before. We both have worked in this state as evaluators. And there were times where if you, as an evaluator, if you called me today, I wouldn't be there for 6 weeks. What are you going to do for 6 weeks?
Right.
You have to have some expertise, and you do already have expertise to meet those students' needs. As we go forward, this was one of those things where we pointed out to you, our slides have resources in them. We're going to reach back into our Disability Rights New Jersey website and point out to you, these are 2 New Jersey special ed advocacy guides that our agency has created, one in English, one in Spanish. You can download these from our website. The links to these are embedded in the slides. I'll put them in the chat so you can get to them right away. But they are in the slides also. Okay, just so you have both of them. But there they are. They live in the slides as well. This might be a great place to start. Might not talk about the assistive technology part. We might have to get to that, but this might give you some sense of how to move forward with your questions and concerns about special ed. We talk about this, and a lot of this, like Naomi said, is the service part. How do you make sure services are provided to a student with a disability who has an IEP? Well, one of the things that's written right into IDEA is this idea that every team must consider whether assistive technology is appropriate for a student or not. Must consider. So the question that begs the question, what is that? What does that mean? What are teams doing when they're considering, air quote, AT? What does that look like? How many of us have leafed through an IEP, whether it's our own child or someone we're working with to support, and the consideration is nothing more than a checkbox that says, has assistive technology been considered, yes or no? What's the answer? The answer better be yes, because if you check no, you've broken the law. I mean, the law, IDEA says, yes, you must consider it. But I'm more interested in how people consider it, because you don't want a parent to come back for professionals and ask, how do you do that? You want to have an answer, because they're entitled to an answer. How does that happen? What does that look like? What have you done in this consideration process to determine whether there's AT involved or not? And, we could go one step deeper and really go down a rabbit hole of what is AT? How much time do we have? We don't have much time for that. That rabbit hole could take us days to talk about. What does that look like? Is a Chromebook assistive tech? Yeah. Is a highlighter pen assistive tech? Yeah, it could be. Is a note card assistive tech, or a flip or a post-it note? Sure, it could be. Because what makes something assistive tech is the function it provides to someone who needs it. That's what makes it assistive tech. But how do we get there? How do we consider it? How do you demonstrate, you as a professional, how do you demonstrate you've done this? I think about consideration. It could be as easy as asking questions to each other, coming up and brainstorming ideas, all of those things, trying things. Those are consideration. If I walk in a classroom and say, hey, have you guys tried the built-in accessibility of your Chromebook to see if that will help your student? No, what does that look like? And I show you, you show the student uses it, and you come to some decision of whether that was helpful or not. You've considered whether that assistive technology is appropriate or not. My question, if this question on the slide is 1A, what does consideration mean to you? Question 1B is, once you've considered it, how do you demonstrate and document your consideration?
Right.
Sometimes, Naomi's heard me say this a bunch of times, I think of AT consideration sometimes like that old saying, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to hear it, did it make a sound? If your team considered AT and no one wrote it down, did you really consider AT? So this idea of documenting, making sure you're, as a team, start to understand how that has to go, and then come to some decisions. These are answers you can come to as a team without an AT specialist. You've considered AT, and you have these 5 options that could happen. It's not necessary. Okay. As professionals, you've decided that that's not appropriate for that student. Great. You may decide that the learner has not had access, but may benefit from something. And then we move forward and figure out what that thing is. Maybe the student has AT in place and their needs are being met. Pat yourselves on the back. You guys have done it. That's it. That's the best case scenario, is that it's there and it's working and the person's being successful. Awesome. Maybe it's number 4. The student is using something as technology, but needs something else, additional needs. And then finally, the 5th one, which is an okay answer to get to. As a team, we just don't know. We need additional information, or we need another person to help us. Then you might see your AT specialist come in to provide and supplement the team that you have in place. But there are steps you can do before that. And I would have to admit, as an AT specialist, if I'm coming in at step 5 and I can ask a lot of questions of the team that give me the information from steps 1 through 4, that's great for me, because then I can be of better use to the team and better use to the student, because now I understand what's been tried and what happened. We talk about this idea of teams and how to do that. And we are believers of this concept of building capacity building models. The expert model, waiting for the AT specialist to tell you what to do before you do anything. The expert model does not work. You can have expertise in things. Naomi has expertise in AT. I have expertise in AT. Each of you has expertise in something. We can be, and I hate this word when I talk about people, I hate being an expert, but you can have expertise. But we need to work together in order to make sure that's working for someone. And it's more than just knowing every app that ever existed. I don't know how many times Naomi and I get cornered by people who want to quiz us on apps. Have you heard of this app? Have you tried this app? And our answer a lot of times is no. Tell us about it. What does it do? How have you used it? Has it been helpful? Those kinds of questions are better conversations to get in about tech. Thinking about how you navigate through your school systems with maybe principles of universal design for learning. How do you make sure you are interfacing with your IT department to make sure technology is being used? Does your school have ed tech coaches that maybe have some knowledge that you can use and kind of deputize into this process? And then assistive technology that goes with it. How do you make sure you're collaborating well to break down silos of what people know, but they maybe are not sharing? Because ultimately we want to learn from each other. Every school I've ever been in, everyone, I feel comfortable saying that. I don't like a lot of definitives like that, but I'm going to say that every school, there's been someone that one teacher in that school say to me, oh, I don't know about that, but there's Miss So-and-so who is so good at that. There are experts in our schools. There are experts in our teams. We need to find them. We need to help them share their information so we all get better. And then ultimately it's navigating the circles of technology. Assistive technology is the smallest circle. It is directly related to the need of that individual student. AT is student specific, but that same tool could perhaps also be educational technology. Maybe they use that in the classroom. Think about everybody gets a Chromebook, right? Everybody gets a Chromebook. That's awesome. It's an ed tech tool. Awesome. It can also be an AT tool for someone else, but it's looked at as an ed tech tool. And then both of those tools work within the larger circle of IT. How do they connect to the network? How are they managed? How do we make sure that the students are safe as they're using the technology? All of these have to work together, which means we have to collaborate with each other and think about making things flexible. Are the schools employing the principles of universal design for learning, giving flexibility to the learning experience, both in the ways information is presented to students, the ways they demonstrate what they know, and then finally the ways that they're engaged in the learning experience. So if you're not familiar with the UDL guidelines, those are them. They are awesome. They are not AT specific, but what they are is providing you a framework, a path to make your learning flexible for more learners to be successful. I don't think we'll show the video, but the video is in the slide. And when I think about building capacity, and Naomi, how many times have we seen this video, right? That I forced it down and you've continued to watch it. I love this video. It is my favorite.
I think you need to show it.
No, I don't know that we have time, Naomi. I'm going to pass. If we have time at the end, I will come back to this video, I promise.
It's a great video.
It's a really great video.
Point.
What it talks about is this idea of, as we move through our schools, how do we make sure we are nurturing each other so that we start to become stakeholders in each other's movement? My movement is to get people to use assistive technology. How do I get people involved in that? How do I find my first follower? How do I get someone hooked? Like, oh, I think that's awesome. Assistive technology is great. How do I get them to move us forward? And how do I build those relationships with others? So this is Derek Sivers, is the gentleman in this video, called How to Start a Movement. So maybe we'll get to it at the end. That's like a tease to the end. Let's see what kind of time we have. Don't worry, if we have time, if you're all noticing on my screen, you're looking at my my browser. That video is so important that I keep it in my browser bar. It's in my bookmarks bar, so I can get to that video at any time. I don't need the slides for that. I show that to people constantly. Some other resources that we have for you. This is for that person when we go to a school and talk to them and they say, I don't know who in my school could help me. This is a PDF, and the PDF is in the picture there. And it is a skills inventory sheet where This was developed from an organization called Alt Shift in Michigan. This was a group that I had worked with several years back. They were talking about that. And what they did was they went through the professional organizations for the people that work in our schools, speech pathologists, OTs, PTs, school psychologists, special ed teachers, regular ed teachers, those kinds of people. And they went through their the criteria that they had on their website about what should this person know. If you're an OT, you might know these things. And they kind of created this skill list. And so when we start thinking about our own schools and who can help us, this is a list of skills and the people in your school who might have that skill to help you. That doesn't mean they definitely have it, but it's a good place to start. Great form. I call this the Girl Scout cookie form because it's got those colored bars on the side that always makes me think of a Girl Scout form. But it's a great form. In the back of the PDF, it also has pages you can print out and you could hand to people on your team. You could go to your OT and say, what are these skills? What are you comfortable in? To your SLP, what skills are you comfortable in? And you could start to compile this to know who's around in your school that can help you. So all of this leads us to, how do we do this? How do we start to document consideration, Naomi?
Okay, before we continue, I just want to ask, does anyone, we covered a lot of information. Now's your chance to raise your hand, turn on your mics, use the chat, and ask questions. I will give you a second.
No, he's not lying. We did a lot. That was a lot of information.
That
There's
was
a lot of dense
of information. No one has a question.
You're all afraid to ask a question. That's okay. Think about them as you go.
Yeah, really quiet group today, guys. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's okay. I think sometimes when this kind of information is shared with people, they need time to process it a little bit. Don't worry. We'll give you our email addresses at the end. And little tease for us later in the week, we will be back on Saturday morning to do another session. So you can think about this all week and then come back Saturday and chat with us too.
Yes, and if you have questions, please, I love to be interrupted, so please feel free to interrupt me. Okay, just put in the chat if you ever heard of the SET framework before. I just am curious to see if anyone heard of it before. Yes, I know you have, Mike.
I wanted you to see something in the chat.
Thank you. I have not, but it's great. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Amy and Jill, for sharing. Anyone else? Just curious. I mean, it's something if you're not an IET professional, if you don't know about SET, not sure if you're really IET professional or not, because everyone should know about SET. And it applies to a lot of things, not just AT. SET stands for Student Environment, Task, and Tools. Student is always the first one. The student should always be involved when it comes to making decisions. I mean, you need to know the student's interests, you need to know their challenges, their strengths, and the perfect person to tell you all these things is the student. Get them involved, make them think about, how is it I learn best? What are my strengths? What are my interests? Get the students involved in this process. Then you have the environment. What environment are they in? Are they in college? Are they in a school setting, in a group home? Really important to know what environment they in and what they going to be doing in the environment. Then you have the task. the task is what are they going to be doing? Are they going to be reading? Do they have a job? Do they need to be counting things? I mean, what is expected? You need to know the task before you even get to the tools. As you notice, the tools is last. The tools are important, don't get me wrong, but you need to know what comes before you even begin to look at the tools. You could go to the next slide. And as you see, you have the student, the environment, and the task. You don't even see the tools yet, because thanks, Mike, for putting that in the chat. The tools yet. You have to be looking at the student, the environment, and the task first before you even get to the tools. It's so important to know what they're doing, what kind of environment they are having, and the task. Then look at the tools. Tools come later. I mean, everyone wants more tools, but it's not all about the tools. It's about what you're going to be doing with the tools to make it effective. Mike, you want to add anything?
I want to talk for 3 or 4 hours on the set form.
Yes.
I'll add something.
Thank you.
I think that if you leave our hour with nothing else today, leave with the idea of this is a way to document what your team has done. Your team can be anyone that's working with that student, family, the student themselves, all of the team members at the school. Everyone fills out a form from their perspective. I'm the student, and I think these are my needs and abilities and my likes and dislikes. And this is where I think I'm going to need technology, and this is what I need to do. I'm going to put that out there. And what happens when everybody does their own form, because ideally what we do with this is we give this to everyone on the team and say, fill this out about this student. Then what we do is we compile that at the end to come up with a plan of what tools we might want to try. Like Naomi said, I think the most important thing about this form is there's nowhere on here to write tools.
Right.
That's the best part.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to tools. Don't worry. Because like anything else, there's more tools that are inappropriate for people than there are that are appropriate. So don't worry about the tools yet, but figure out what it is you're looking for.
Right.
If you do something like this tool, use this framework, use this guide to help you document this, anytime someone ever said to you, how do you consider AT? You could hold this up and say, this is how we considered it. We did this set framework. We compiled this information and made a decision as a team to move forward with something. Was it right? I don't know. Time will tell. You know, one of the things I always felt a little bad about as being an evaluator is there were times when I would do an evaluation where at best you were getting an educated guess what might work for someone.
Right.
I've just met you. I've just met this student. I've just met the team. I sit with you for 2 hours, and what happens? I write a report with some ideas of what might work, but we might not know that until we get those ideas in action and then play with them. And so thinking about this form, the document that I just put in the chat, is a 2-page PDF of the set form that you can fill out. Really, really powerful as you go forward, because it's reminding you of what it is you're trying to accomplish. So imagine that set form is consideration from the student perspective. It's very focused on a student. Now let's think broader. If you're in a school, how do you look at consideration and everything else, which is part of your process of how you do things? We will not go through all these today. Don't worry, I will jump through the slides. But there is an organization that is made up of practitioners in the field called QUIET. QUIET stands for the Quality Indicators for Assistive Tech Services. What they've done is created a set of guidelines under each area listed on the slide there to help teams make sure they are providing what? Quality AT services, from consideration to assessment to how to put it in the IEP, how to implement it, how to evaluate whether it's working and being effective, talking about AT in transition, how to get administrative support for AT, and then finally professional development. All of that is critical to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, to make sure we're meeting the needs of students with disabilities in their IEPs. I'll put a link in the chat. So I was lucky enough to have the members of the QUIET leadership team record videos for another project I was working on. And they give you a half-hour kind of overview of each of these areas. And so that's at that video link that we dropped in there. Naomi put the chat in the chat about the QUIET website itself. All of these forms live on the QUIET website. I'm going to put this consideration form. This is the consideration worksheet from QUIET, and it's a PDF where you can go through and rate your system. How do we do this? How do we do it well? Do we need help? 5 is you're amazing. 1, I'm not going to say is you stink. 1 is you need work. Where are you living in that continuum of 1 through 5? As a team, you should take 5 minutes and do this. And then you should compare, because what we see a lot is a disconnect between team members. Perhaps one team member thinks they do this really well, and then another teammate thinks they do it very poorly. And that's just their perspectives on the process. And so what do you need to work on? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are some actions we need to do in order to move us forward? I'll show you some of these. So this is the AT indicators for consideration. We're not going to go through all of them real deep, but I just want you to get a sense of what they are. And so when we think about this idea of what is this address, AT devices and services are considered for all students with disabilities. Well, yes, of course they are, right? We just talked about that this has to be what happens. But are they? Number 5, everybody gets consistently evaluated for their needs, not evaluated, that's a poor word choice, considered for their needs for assistive technology. To 1, AT is not considered for students with disabilities. Where do you live on that continuum? Sometimes we find our schools work and have supports in place for certain types of disabilities. And then they meet the needs of those students very well. Maybe your school district has a program focused on students with autism. And so in that case, they provide services pretty consistently about students with autism. But what if a student with a physical disability moves into district? Are the same procedures in place to ensure that they get an equal kind of service delivered to them? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Those are the questions we have to ask. When the teams are working to develop the IEP, do you use, listen to these words. These words are so important here, a collaborative decision-making process that supports systematic consideration of every student's needs. Do you do that? My favorite word in all the QUIET indicators is the word consistently, because we can see that this happens sometimes. Does it happen consistently? That's the key for that. The team members have the collective knowledge and skills to make decisions. And if they don't, it's our process to bring people in. This talks to your team and what that looks like. Again, so it's not a checklist, but what it is, it's a set of best practices that you can use to have a conversation with your team about how are we doing things? What do we need to do better? Continue on. Get through these. I'm watching the time too. Decisions regarding the need for AT devices and service are based on the student's IEP goals and objectives and their progress in the general ed curriculum. AT gets put in place for a student because of an identified IEP need. Not just because something new is out there, not just because someone else got something and I want to get that too. And I'm being a little flip with that, but you get the idea is that this has to be very specific to each person's unique needs. That's what makes it assistive technology. It goes back to those individualized needs. Does the team gather and analyze data about the student and then decide how to move forward with AT devices and service? We're gathering and analyzing data all the time. What makes assistive technology any different? It sounds scarier because we don't have an AT person, but it's really not. It's the same kind of thing. As you're gathering data, you could say at the end, would assistive technology help this? I don't know. We have that conversation and then we start doing a deeper consideration. Does the team explore a range of tools, low tech to high tech, that could address that person's needs? That consideration process results are documented in the IEP and include a rationale for the decision and supporting evidence. How do you do that now? I've already given you one thing you could do that with, which is the set framework form. That is a demonstration. That is supporting evidence to show how you got where you got. That's the answer right there. And I think what's interesting is that when we think about consideration, doing it well, it is a combination of two things. It is the set, which is that student-centered tool, and quiet, which is your school or your process-focused tool. Those two things have to work together in order to make sure you're doing this well. Ultimately, effective implementation is not when we put a tool in front of someone. If you were going to say implementation is 100% is implementation, putting a tool in front of someone, Naomi, is where are we at percentage-wise?
We are, ask that again.
What do you think? It's not 50. What is it? 40? Could it be 40?
I think 49.
Okay, a little less than 50% there. I see what Naomi did there. Okay, I'll take it. You're not more than halfway there. Getting the tool is good. That doesn't mean you've done it. That works when you are getting a tool and you're providing services to wrap around it so that it works for the student. I will tell you one of my biggest failures as an evaluator, because what better way to wrap up the hour than to tell you a giant failure? But it does illustrate this idea of service. I went into a school, evaluated a student's needs, came up with an answer that I thought would work. The school bought the tool, but did not ask for training. We would always recommend training. They did not take the training.
Oh my God.
Go back to evaluate another student in that school, maybe 4 or 5 months later. And I'm in that school and I said, well, I'm going to walk down the hall and see how my other friend's doing. This is the same school. Let me go see what happened. I go down the hall. As I get to the classroom, the tool I had recommended was holding the door open as a door stop. It was a literal door stop, holding the door. And when I went in, the teacher made eye contact with me and freaked and stared right at that tool on the floor and then right at me. And she looked mortified. She's like, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. And I said to her, you don't have to be sorry. That's clearly not the right tool. Anybody could recognize that. This is not the right tool now. What failed this student was the service piece, the training, the trialing, the getting back together as a team to decide if it worked. None of that happened. So it was a wash. It was a lost opportunity. It was wasted time, wasted energy, and wasted money. All of that was wasted because the services we provided were not well thought out. And so when we talk about this idea of making sure you're doing things effectively in your services, that is the way to make sure students are getting what they need when they need it, and they're being successful. Ultimately, that's what we're striving for. So one more resource, and then I see we are 2 minutes from the end of the hour. Lisa, I got my eye on the clock. Don't worry. I got you. Quick, another resource. Again, out of the Disability Rights New Jersey, and you can go to our website and get any of these and download them, but I'll give you the link in the chat. That is a PDF, Our Students Guide to Transition Services through Voc Rehab. Really great document to give you some other information about how to move through these processes, these services that students might need to tap into as they go forward in order to be successful. We have 1 minute. Questions or comments or thoughts? There's the slides. One more time, we'll put the link in the chat so you have it. What do you want to talk about for the last minute? We appreciate you being here. I hope this was helpful. We hope this was helpful for you. Hope that this gave you some things to think about, some avenues to talk to team members, family members, students themselves, everything to just keep the conversation rolling forward. Good, Jill. I'm glad that helped. Cole, I'm glad that it's valuable to you guys. Again, our email addresses are there. All of our social media channels, you can follow us, you can reach out to us. Don't forget to visit our website at at4nj.org. We were very happy to be here with you today. We hope that this helped you, and we look forward to talking with you. Join us again on Saturday at 10 o'clock. I had to think about it.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Mike and Naomi. This unfortunately concludes our workshop, Assisted Technology in the IEP Process, Student Involvement, from our friends at Disability Rights New Jersey. We want to again thank you guys for sharing your vast knowledge, and especially all these great resources that you left for us in the chat box. So thank you again so much.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.